Hello everybody, this is Glenn with an update on my coupe build. This session's been all about mocking up the aluminum for the cockpit, trunk, and firewall. As I mentioned earlier, I did a whole lot of changes to the frame, and I expected to have a lot of changes to be made to the aluminum as well. I was pleasantly surprised that it really didn't go very badly. I had to modify some pieces, make up some new ones, and the firewall was a lot of fun. Let's get started with a look at the firewall. To do the firewall and the driver foot box, I first assembled a pedal box, put that in place, mocked up the steering along with the front suspension. And by the way, there's a sway bar I bought from a forum member who I believe originally bought it for a Mark II car. It fit up pretty well, except the bracketry that holds it to the frame is a little bit weird. The fasteners for the sway bar interfere with the fasteners for mounting it to the frame. I'm gonna have to, I believe, resort to welding this to the frame. It's gonna be a pain to booger up all that new paint, but that's the way it goes when you're not following the usual path. As far as the footbox is concerned, a couple years back, a forum member from the Roadster Forum, 2B King, had a buy offer on some aluminum for putting a Coyote into a Cobra. I decided to jump onto that, knowing that the foot boxes were going to be very similar. And so what you see here is the front cover for the foot box and the inner side panel for the foot box are from the 2B King sheet metal. As you can see, it narrows out quite a bit to accommodate the wider Coyote at the top, but then the foot box gets a little bit wider at the bottom, so there's still a decent amount of room for pedals. I think it's a pretty nice setup, and I thank him for putting that together. That was a huge help. Talking about the driver foot box, I also made a huge access hole for the outer side of the top cover. And because I actually didn't install one of the parts exactly where it belongs, I need to make another cover for the top inside of the foot box too. What happened was the inner panel there ended up being installed about a quarter or maybe 3/8 of an inch too low, and things just didn't quite line up at the top of this foot box. So I made another panel and went on with it. The firewall is completely new. Instead of angling back on a 45 degree the way the original foot box is supposed to go, this one goes straight down to the top of the passenger foot box, and then from there goes straight back to the big 2x2 frame member that forms the cowl at the front of the frame. So, I believe that's going to get me plenty of room for the Coyote engine I plan to put in there. I do, by the way, plan on installing that about 2 or 3 inches forward from its normal position. So that should give me plenty of clearance around that firewall. On to, let's see, the interior. One of the things I did was to accommodate my bigger door openings was to actually move the door pillar back a good bit. You can see where the original door pillar, let me get my handy pointer here. The original door pillar came in about here, right there. I actually moved this thing back about 3 inches and created a new sill bar and made this part, the plate that the striker mounts to, made that entirely removable. That said, as far as aluminum is concerned, it meant that the floor wasn't quite going to fit and the back corners weren't going to fit. So I trimmed the existing floor, gave me a mounting point right along that 2x2 tube that I laid in there, and then made these pieces for the sidewall, or for the rear corner of the cockpit. The rear cockpit wall U-joint cover The inside corner, all that stuff lines up just fine. Coming around to the front, I had to do a little bit of a few changes to the passenger foot box to accommodate the firewall. The centerpiece for the tunnel works just fine. Coming over to the driver's side, pretty much the same deal. At the back, I had to make up a couple of new pieces for the outer corner. Everything else is the original sheet metal. That other little piece labeled 9.5 is part of the 2B King Coyote sheet metal as well. That fit in there just like it's supposed to, so again, thanks to him. Give you a quick look under behind the dash. Tons of room. Over there where the green tape is where the heater and AC box is going to go. Lots of room for instrumentation and whatever other pieces I decide to put under the dash there. Well, I have plenty of room there for things. On to the trunk. Again, I made a bunch of changes here. If you haven't caught up on it already, I basically dropped the rear portion of the trunk floor about 5 inches. All new framework under that, and of course new pieces of aluminum to go with it. That front piece that's right up there against the diagonal bar forms the back of the cockpit. That piece up at the higher level is the only remaining untouched piece of the original trunk floor. The rest is all new or modified. With the trunk walls, they're pretty much original, except I cut a big opening in the rear section of that to allow me to put in a little cubby hole of some sort down the road. I know I'm going to have some space there, but I just don't quite know what the shape of it is until the body's back on. So the opening's there. We'll see what we can do with it down the road. I also hung the fuel tank. I'll give you a look at it from underneath. I think I mentioned earlier, this is a custom fuel tank from RCI. It's tapered on the bottom, happens to fit very nicely with tucks under the rear fiberglass very well. And it allowed me to drop the trunk floor the 5 inches I went after. And gives me supposedly a 17-gallon capacity. I figure it's going to be a little bit less, you know, with the internal hardware and measuring capacities from outside dimensions. But yeah, it's going to be a pretty decent tank. So in the trunk floor tapers down on an angle to meet the I'll call it the trunk well, the lower level of the trunk floor. Have some access covers there for access to the hardware that's going to be mounting the rear shocks. That was just a little too tight there. Sidewalls, trunk floor. That's in 3 pieces because I needed to put a bend in the back edge of those panels, but my brake just wasn't going to handle a piece that wide. So I cut it up into 3 pieces, lining up with the frame members that I put in place. The rear trunk wall is going to be entirely removable. So that's the original trunk wall with another extension of about 5 or 6 inches attached to the bottom of it. That whole thing will come out as one piece, so it'll give me great access to the body mounts, any wiring that's back there, and anything I need to get to in the back end, I should be able to get there pretty easily. Speaking of that panel, it's on the bench. I'm doing a little bit of gluing up with it just to get the couple of inches tucked down, but there it is. So all in all, it's been a busy few weeks getting this far, but it's starting to look like a car, sorta, and I'm really happy with the progress. Thank you everybody for watching. Bye-bye.